Well, continuing on the project of the old '89 Chevy pickup truck, the frame was quite rusty and with some of the undercoat flaking off. It looked pretty bad. So I decided to coat it with a rust-proof paint, water-based rust-proof paint. So again, I took the bed off because the frame is much easier to get to rather than crawling around on the floor, especially with this paint. I set the bed outside on my garden trailer, so I was free to roam around the frame at will. Okay. The thing you got to do is make certain you prep all the surfaces. Clean, clean, and re-clean. I cleaned all my surfaces with AquaClean KBS product, and then I blasted them with my 2700 PSI high-pressure washer. I did both sides of the frame, crawled underneath it, lifted the truck up on stilts, and washed underneath. I washed and still didn't get it clean. Here's some residue from a leaking seal that I repaired on the gas tank. Here's the top of the frame, basically right after cleaning or during the cleaning job. When you think you're clean it again. Just clean it again because you're going to run into dirt when you paint. So here's the frame sitting outside, almost finished cleaning. I rolled the thing inside the garage and left it in there overnight. Here's a few photos of the prep frame ready for the rust-proof coating. There's the differential. I coated it with the rust-proof coating. I painted the drive shaft with a flat back black spray paint. I removed the shock absorbers. Here's the frame drying again in the garage. More pictures of the frame drying in the garage. This is the right side shock absorber removed. More views of the right side. You can see the drive shaft, which I painted with a flat back spray. Here's the brake line and the electrical wiring running to the back. I removed those, and here's a picture that's a little out of sequence just to show you that I removed those and pulled them away from the frame so they could paint everything behind them. Fairly easy to remove, 5 clamps. Here's the products I used. I used KBS Coating AquaClean, which is a water-based solvent. The Rust Blast, which prepares the surfaces, and then the KBS Rust Seal. Get some containers and use the stuff that came with it. Use the brush that came with it and pour the paint into a container. Here's a paintbrush that I thought would work better. It didn't. This, after half the job, it cratered. So now I'm ready to apply the rust proofing. I cover all the chrome surfaces and I brushed the rust blast on with a paintbrush. And I kept it wet, tried to leave it on there for at least 20 minutes, and then I toweled it off because the truck was immobilized, so to speak. Here's the leaf springs. Here's the coating. It leaves a white residue if you let it dry, so you got to wet it again. I did the differential, did the whole rear end of the truck, essentially, including the brake drums. There's the right side of the truck, coating removed, getting ready to put the final coating on. Then you let it dry and you coat it. I coated it with a rather expensive brush that I thought would work nice to allow me to get into the cracks and crevices. That brush cratered on the left side. Here's when I used the brush that came with the KBS stuff. I don't like those brushes because the bristles tend to come off, although not too many bristles came off and the brush seemed to work much better through the whole job. I coated the differential with the KBS, I coated the rear axle with the KBS, and I coated the brake drums with the KBS Rust Seal. There you can see my implements of destruction, and I use Goo Gone to kind of clean my hands off, because get this stuff off before it dries, otherwise it has to die on you until your skin flakes off. There's the fuel tank. I took all the wiring off and then I put it back on when I was done coating it. Here's the wiring back on. I have some penetrating oil on the nuts and bolts, but I did not paint them. Here's the shock absorber painted with a flat black paint, reinstalled. There I've reinstalled the brake line and the vent tube to the differential, and the wiring, of course. There's another view of the wiring, brake line, differential, and everything ready to be attached. There's the plug that goes to the bed for the lights, license plate lights. Top view, a close-up view of the differential. You can see that, man, this was after the first coat, and you missed just a lot of stuff. So you got to apply 2 coats and probably 3 coats to make sure you get it to where everything. Here's after the second coat. There's a view looking to the right rear. Here's a view looking from the left rear up to the front of the truck. just when I thought I had everything, I didn't have everything. So here's what the thing looked like with the bed placed back on it. You can see the spots that I missed. In any event, KBS coatings, rust proofing on my 1989 Chevy Silverado pickup. Thanks for looking. Classic Manuals production. Go to our site, visit our site for documentation on this and other projects as we rebuild this truck. Thank you again for looking.